All right, hello and welcome back to Catch and Cook California. I'm Kevin. Today I am joined by Diane and Miso. I said we were going to introduce you to Miso in the last video, so here she is. Miso is a field golden. She's super cute. So we're going to roll a couple clips of the last month with her, and then we're going to go do a little spearfishing, a little catching and cooking. Let's go.
So this is Miso's very first time running around on a lawn. We had to keep her indoors until she got vaccinated, so she definitely had the zoomies when we took her to the beach for the first time too. Miso's maiden voyage on the kayak.
So come on.
Whatever.
Come on.
Look.
Come on.
Look,
Come on.
Mom.
Come here. Come on. Come on. Good girl. Come here. What a good doggy. What a good girl.
That is so cute.
What a good girl. What a good girl.
The absolute cutest little sleepyhead, especially when she uses my boots as a pillow. Anyway, if you're interested, I'm doing a lot of intertidal foraging at this time. Some great low tides this month, but they're actually not going to last. So if you want to get out and you want to go for some eels, or right now is seaweed season. So if you want to learn edible seaweed identification and sustainable foraging for seaweeds, now's the time. I'm also going to be guiding some shore fishing from the jetties, so if you want to learn that, or clamming. Specifically, we'll be going for horseneck clams and Washington clams, some of the biggest species we have in the state. And now that we have decent visibility, I'll be guiding a lot of entry-level freedive spearfishing in the shallows if you're interested. Now this particular outing, we were freedive spearfishing the California Channel Islands, specifically going for calico bass, aka kelp bass. On this particular drop, I'm at the bottom and you can see a school of what are called half moons. Now behind the half moons in the murk are the calicos. And this is real typical calico behavior. They kind of hang out on the periphery and they do not let you get close, which is why I'm ducked behind this boulder. Notice that calico darts off to the left, and all of a sudden all the calicos in the back are totally gone. This is also very typical calico behavior. They are incredibly wary. Now on this particular drop, I see a 2-spot octopus. And I take octopus quite frequently because it is sustainable. They only live to be about a year before they reproduce and die. But a lot of times I just leave them alone and marvel at their beauty. Check this guy out as he changes colors and blends into this cave. Such a cool animal. Up to the upper left there, that is a painted greenling, another really cool animal, cool fish to see. And of course, nestled all around are purple sea urchin. This is a typical Southern California reef below 50 feet. So here I am dropping back down to around 50 feet. You can see the sandy bottom is littered with mussel shells. As I cruise into here, I'm trying to get off of the sand and out into this bouldery area. And as I'm cruising in, I'm keeping an eye out on the periphery and the horizon to see if I see any fish. Now I've just seen a calico, one right there in the very top center of the screen, and another one here that just disappeared into this cave. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hang out here on the bottom, pulling what the Italians refer to as an aspetto. Aspetto roughly translates to wait or to ambush. When I use this technique, I just nestle in on the bottom and lock my body in place so that I'm not moving. The advantage here is I can just sit and wait. I blend in with the reef, and that way if a fish comes, I can get my shot. Now eventually here my fish is not coming out of that cave, so I push off the bottom and start to move forward. Here's a nice calico. I'm lined up, and that shot would have been pretty easy, but I didn't pull the trigger because I just wasn't sure if it was big enough. There's another one below me here, another one here, and yet another one. Remember, calicos have to be 14 inches, so I'm being very selective. Even though I could have shot any one of those fish, I'm just not sure if they are actually over 14. So I want to see one that's clearly, 15 and a half, 16 inches before I want to line up and take my shot. So I hit the surface and breathe up, and I am joined by a harbor seal. Remember, every time I hit the surface, I'm spending at least 3 times as long on the surface as I am underwater, and that allows my body to breathe off the CO2 that's building up in my lungs, and that way I can avoid what's called a shallow water blackout, the #1 killer of freedivers. We'll talk more about that in a future video. So as I drop down here, I'm seeing a nice calico just chilling in front of this cave. He sees me and kind of moves in. He was probably, again, about 14 inches, but not quite big enough to pull the trigger on. So I look on the other side of the cave, start to glance around, see a few fish here and there, and then all of a sudden fish start coming out from all over. This is probably a legal calico, as is this, but again, they're just on the border. So I line up. Do I want to take this shot? I don't think I'm going to. I'm trying to be very selective here. So there's a lot of time spent watching and waiting for that right shot. The other advantage of the Espeto, besides just blending in, is you're not kicking. And as a result, you're not using your thigh muscles, which are the biggest muscles on your body. Every time you kick, you're burning oxygen. And so by limiting the number of kicks, you're able to stay down significantly longer. This means that the ocean starts to get very used to you, and the fish tend to come out of the woodwork. So this technique is definitely one of my favorites for hunting a number of different species. Back to the surface, back to breathe up, and I make my next drop. So these boulder fields, I'm now seeing that there's a lot of fish in the caves and cracks and crevices. So as a result, I start to change my technique and I start to look at the caves. Now right there I just saw what looks to be about a 15.5-inch calico disappear into this crack. And so I line up, and what I didn't notice was right behind it was a smaller calico. So I'm lining up here waiting for the head of the calico to stick out. And when I see the head stick out, I'm lining up and I'm just starting to squeeze off on the trigger. The problem with this is I think I'm lined up on the bigger calico and I'm about to make a rookie mistake. I get my shot, it's a perfectly placed shot, and when the fish starts thrashing, my heart sinks because I realize it's the wrong fish. I head back to the surface to breathe up, and now I've got to head back down and measure my fish. Now this is one of those moments that does happen in spearfishing. It's something that I am not proud of. I really should not have pulled that trigger, but I did think it was the bigger fish, and so please learn from my mistake. Don't pull the trigger unless you absolutely are certain that that is the same fish that went into that hole. In this particular case, I've got to free the shaft from this crack, bring it back to the surface where my buddy Andrew is waiting, and now I'm going to measure it. I always mark my guns and my pole spears, that way I have the measurements there, usually as a reference before I pull the trigger. In this particular case, you can see me looking at the mouth of the fish and the tail and the mouth and the tail. I'm measuring and remeasuring, but look, it's about a 1/4 inch over 14 inches. I got very lucky here. It is legal, but I do not consider this a proud shot. Instead, I consider this a warning. This is a cautionary note for myself and for all of you. Please do not pull the trigger unless you are 100% certain that that fish is well over legal size. So here I am braining the fish so it doesn't suffer, and I'm about to disentangle the shooting line here. Now, one of the reasons I tend to start beginner freedivers with pole spears rather than spear guns is that there's a lot going on when it comes to a float line and a shooting line. There's a lot of places you can get tangled up. And so I tend to see a lot of new divers, and I remember this when I was starting out, that this was a very frustrating process. But after a while, you get used to it, and you start to be able to disentangle your fish pretty easily and work your way around a shooting line and a float line with ease. So since I've dispatched this fish and I know it's not going to swim away anymore, I'm going to take it off the shaft now and just marvel at those colors. Especially the eye of the calico is really interesting. It's like a Mexican fire opal. You'll see like orange and green and pink and yellow as you move the fish around. Very beautiful fish. You'll know exactly what I mean when you get your first calico. So here I am just swimming it on over to the boat, and I'm going to call it a day and head back to the mainland and do a little cooking. Let's go. So I'm going to start out here by searing some brioche buns to perfect golden brown goodness, adding some oil, and while that heats up I'm using the Slap Yo Mama fish fry blend, which I've never tried before. Rolling some fish in that blend, and then I've got one piece off to the side for miso, and then I'm just going to fry them till golden brown. Look at that. We got a Slap Ya Mama Cajun seasoning. I'm adding to some butter here. I know, butter on top of fried fish. Yeah, it is overkill, but you know what? It's going to be delicious. I know I fry a lot of fish on this channel, but you know what? A good fish fry is a wonderful thing. We're going to put some of that Cajun butter on the bread. We got some crisp dill pickles. I made a slaw from apple and celery and cabbage and a little parsley, a little red onion mixed up with some white vinegar. Very fresh, very delicious. Top that on that bun, and then I'm going to go back through and baste some of that Cajun butter all over the fish, and we've got ourselves a one-of-a-kind fish sandwich. I'm also going to cook up one little piece with no seasoning for miso to give it a try as well.
Miso. Good girl. Sit. Miso. Gentle. Try some calico bass. Gentle. Ooh, what do you think? You want more? She wants more. Nope, that's it. All through. That is a serious sandwich right there. I'm going for it. Whoa. Okay. Never tried that breading. That breading's pretty good. I guess I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit spicier, but I'll be honest with you, that's hitting. And that slaw, it's like the perfect balance to the buttery sauce on there. Miso, you weren't kidding. That's a good fish. Well, I am definitely doing another calico video because they are so darn tasty, but also a lot of fun to hunt. But as far as a recipe, that could not be simpler, and that is really, really good. Before we sign off, I'll be at the Fisherman's Life Street Fair at the Stonestown Galleria. All your favorite YouTubers will be there. It's going to be a ton of fun, always is. Live music, good food, tons of merch, tons of good fishing gear, and you'll probably meet a lot of good people there as well. If you want to come by, say hi. I'd love to meet you. In the meantime, I'm going to finish this off, and until next time, keep the old ways alive. Miso, say bye. Bye-bye. You're so cute. Your dog's cute too.